Chapter 549 Ancient Capital. The stormy clouds were dense as black silk, covering the sunlight. There was no rain, yet the sky was dark. The gray and wilting plants from the current season made the place look dead. As the final flight slowly descended from the stormy clouds, the passengers on board mostly consisted of the last batch of tourists who dared to come to the ancient capital in the middle of the chaos stirred up by the undead. Even the flights have stopped. Luckily we made it on the last one, Lu Ru sighed as they came out from the plane. Her attractive eyes looked around Shenyang Airport. Strictly speaking, it was her first time traveling to somewhere far away, and her destination was the ancient capital, a city with a whole different reputation than the Magic City, Shanghai. A man in a uniform stopped the two at the entrance and said sternly, "Sorry, every passenger is required to prove their identity to us and explain their purpose of coming here." "Am I out of the country now?" Mo Fan frowned. He never knew the check existed. "Emergency period, please cooperate," said the man. "We're here for travel. She's my young lover, so I don't want anyone to know who she is," rejected Mo Fan. Lu Ru's face blushed when he heard his response. Can he think of a better lie? Why young lover? The man's face stiffened. He had never seen anyone act so righteously when he was traveling with a lover. Lu Ru did not have any way to prove her identity. Officially, she was already declared dead, all thanks to forensic doctor Ni Dong. After that, she was turned into a vampire, forcing her to leave her old life. They had yet to make her a new identity. As for boarding the plane, Lu Ru had used her old identification card. The funny thing was, there seemed to be some loopholes in the airline, as a dead person was able to board the plane with their identity card. Although vampires were considered a kind of undead, from Mo Fan's observation over the time he had spent with her recently, her presence felt exactly like a human, the only difference being that she could only digest blood. She even retained the youthful spirit and energy of a teenage girl. It was still daytime, and the undead were sleeping in their tombs. Shenyang was a certain distance away from the ancient capital. Mo Fan and Lu Ru were too lazy to hail a taxi. They simply summoned the swift star wolf and rode him to the ancient capital, Xi'an, along the side of the highway. They could easily tell that the ancient capital was on alert, as even the outer city walls were being patrolled and work was being done on them. The ancient capital of Xi'an had the old city walls. Inside the old city walls was the city center, and outside of them were other districts, like Yanta, Bailan, etc. The places inside the old city walls were mostly attractions for tourists. Currently, a bigger outer wall was being constructed outside of the old city walls. The coverage of the outer wall was 5 times bigger than the inner wall, as most people living in the outskirts had moved here instead. "This is my first time seeing such a giant-sized safe zone," Lu Ru looked up, glancing at the mountain-like wall. "Not sure how many earth magicians are needed to build it, it's indeed spectacular. It also implies how grim the situation is. It's likely that the territory outside of the walls is off-limits to the residents," said Mo Fan. The outer wall was an enormous project. From where Mo Fan was standing, he could not even see the end of the wall in either direction. He remembered that the perimeter of the inner wall was only around 14 kilometers, but he was clueless about the perimeter of the outer wall, which would completely surround the entire city. The entrance was guarded by the people of the Magic Association, while the battle mages were in charge of the checkpoints. During the day, the inspection was not too strict, but as evening approached, the military would not allow anyone to leave the city, as commoners who were outside of the wall were basically food for the undead. After crossing the heavily guarded outer wall, the situation inside the wall looked fairly normal. It was no different than any other city. However, the streets were fairly lively and crowded, as people from the outskirts had moved here. With the new outer wall protecting the civilians like an enormous dragon, the people were not so worried about the chaos happening outside of the wall. Perhaps they had gotten used to similar situations, hence they just focused on their lives. Mo Fan did not stay too long in the districts. He headed straight for the Clock Tower Magic Association. The Clock Tower Magic Association and the Bell Tower Hunter Union were basically right at the center of the city, standing firmly even in stormy rains. Mo Fan was initially planning to learn more about the situation from Zhang Xiaohu's headquarters, but he decided to ask the person who had sent the death news to him instead. The guy told Mo Fan that Zhang Xiaohu had gone missing in action during a rescue operation. They had yet to locate his corpse, since they decided not to send anyone else out there. However, he was sure that the incident took place between Sunny Goat Village and Hua Village. The miracle villages were the only ones left outside of the walls. The villages were still unharmed even today, but as they did not use any modern technology, communication between the villages and the ancient capital would take a very long time. The news about the squad being wiped out was delivered to the army by a villager. The army was not able to validate it. Mo Fan talked to Zhang Xiaohu's instructor, Fei Zhao, for a fairly long time. The instructor basically told Mo Fan everything. It was obvious that the instructor was very concerned about Zhang Xiaohu too, yet because of the important mission on hand, he did not have the chance to go and seek the truth. "Where do we go now?" asked Lu Ru. "We'll find a few experienced hunters to go to Sunny Goat Village with us," said Mo Fan. Mo Fan was unfamiliar with the place, and most of the time the undead were scarier to deal with than demon beasts. Whether he was trying to investigate the truth or rescue someone, he would need a reliable team. Mo Fan was hoping to find some experts from the Magic Association, yet none of them seemed interested in going outside of the walls. In the end, Mo Fan had no choice but to look for members in the Bell Tower Hunter Union. He could easily find a handful of fearless hunters. The lobby was crowded. You could always find hunters at dangerous places, as the more dangerous a place was, the more treasure it would contain. The Hunter Union at Ancient Capital was fairly active. Mo Fan glanced at the rolling screen filled with quests, and discovered that lots of them were listed as rescue. Since the chaos started, many people were still in danger outside of the walls. Therefore, those who were safe inside the walls would submit quests to rescue them. "It's basically all rescues. Looks like many people are in danger," said Lu Ru. "I won't call them rescues, it's more like corpse retrieval," corrected a hoarse voice. Lu Ru turned around and saw an adventurous-looking shorty standing nearby. Even with her height, she had to lower her gaze to see his face. The shorty cleared his throat and said sternly, "Those who submitted the quests are only hoping that their close ones won't turn into those filthy things outside of the walls. Therefore, our Hunter Union of the Ancient Capital will soon turn into the Corpse Retrieval Union." Chapter 550 The Black-Hearted Guide. "Well, where do I start? I have a friend missing out there," asked Mo Fan, glancing at the shorty. "I can tell that it's your first time here at the Ancient Capital." "Do you know the rules among the hunters here?" said the shorty disdainfully, proud because he was experienced here. "Not at all," Mo Fan humbly asked for advice. "The hunters who are alive here have all abandoned their teammates before. The most common saying around here is, 'Don't look back, retrieve their corpses during the day,'" said the shorty. "Aren't you supposed to help your teammate when they are in trouble?" asked Lu Ru confusingly. Even though she was not a hunter herself, even she knew that there was a code of conduct maintained among the hunters. "No betraying, no deserting." "I'm sorry, it doesn't apply here," the shorty smiled. "Then what do you mean by Corpse Retrieval Alliance?" asked Lu Ru further. "Those who are left outside the wall overnight are surely dead. Sending someone to rescue them can sound heroic, but their job is pretty much to retrieve their bodies, so they won't end up as the undead. So you should give up on trying to save someone. It's impressive enough if you manage to find 1 or 2 parts of your friend's remains," explained the shorty as he fondled his mustache. "How could that be? I'm not here to scare you. It's been the same for a long time, let alone now." The shorty glanced at Lu Ru. His height was just right to stare at her breasts, not too big, but firm and elegant in shape. "If you came and talked to us, does that mean you have an idea?" said Mo Fan. He, brother, you're smart," the shorty smiled. His curling mustache implied that he was fairly pleased with himself. That might be the case, Mo Fan wore a smile too. "I know there are lots of smart people around, and not many would believe someone like me. Go ahead and browse around. If anyone is willing to go with you, feel free. I would remind you though, even if you offer them money, they won't necessarily go with you." The shorty burst into laughter and walked away. Mo Fan and Lu Ru did not believe the shorty, as he looked just like a typical mountebank. The two proceeded to walk around the place, yet even when Mo Fan showed his strength or his hunter badge, or offered a huge reward to the people, everyone's face sank as soon as they heard the name Sunny Goat Village. None of them dared to accept the offer, no matter how much money was offered. Mo Fan then found out that a dark abyss had appeared close to Sunny Goat Village. Even though he had no clue what it was obvious that everyone was scared of it. Left with no choice, the two went back to the shorty, who had already expected their return. He was sitting cross-legged smoking a cigar while his eyes raked over the attractive Lu Ru. "So how was it?" asked the shorty. "As you mentioned," replied Mo Fan with a wry smile. "Let's talk about the price then." The shorty cut straight to the topic. "My friend is important to me, just give me a price." "I don't care about money." Mo Fan did not waste any time. Anyone who was willing to be their guide would surely ask for a reward in return. Mo Fan had prepared himself mentally. The shorty raised a finger. 1 million, deal, agreed Mo Fan pleasantly. "Do you think I'm a beggar?" 10 million. The shorty sat down again. Mo Fan was stunned. He glanced at Lu Ru and said calmly, "We should go on our own." Lu Ru was left speechless. Didn't some guy just say his friend is important and he doesn't care about money just a few seconds ago? If we go ourselves, we won't know how to get there. We might even end up right in the middle of the undead's tombs. It sounds expensive, yet he's the only one willing to go there. I do have some money with me. I was going to give it to you, since I can't spend them. Lu Ru pulled Mo Fan aside and handed him a debit card. "Oh Lu Ru, that's not how you should spend your money." Where did you get so much money?" asked Mo Fan. "Those little vampires gave it to me. They were quite rich," explained Lu Ru softly. "Oh, some ill-gotten gains, I'll take it." Quote. Lu Ru giggled when she saw Mo Fan taking the money so sternly. She thought Mo Fan would righteously reject it, yet it turned out that the guy was a money lover, a bad guy. There was no way Mo Fan was able to pay 10 million RMB. He had no money at all. Little Flame Bell was the most expensive child to raise in the world, and he had pretty much spent all his savings. That being said, the benefits he got in return were shocking too. Without the Flame Bell, Mo Fan would never have been able to defeat Dongfang Lai, who had the 4th-tier Fiery Fist. Lu Ru's money had resolved Mo Fan's emergency at the perfect time. The shorty gave Mo Fan a disdainful look when he took the card. The shorty thought Mo Fan was more impressive when such a beauty was following him around, yet it appeared that he was living off the woman instead. Speaking of which, the gorgeous girl was fairly rich. She did not even blink twice when giving the 10 million away. Even the old hunters who had worked at the ancient capital for many years would not be able to save so much. 20% discount, bargained Mo Fan. No way. The shorty remained firm. Only he and his brother knew the trick, and he believed that there was someone who wanted to go to the Sunny Goat Village, hence no discount. "Does it include protection?" asked Mo Fan. "No, my brother and I are only average hunters, so you must know how to protect yourself. I can prevent you from being surrounded by the undead at night, but I can't guarantee they won't attack you," said the shorty. "We can protect ourselves," declared Lu Ru. "One more condition. You won't be the only client. There will be other people with us," said the shorty. "There's still a condition? Fuck," cursed Mo Fan. He had never seen such a black-hearted guide, definitely the most expensive in the world. "Friend, we're risking our lives for this, with a hunter master vouching for us. The price is only like this because we're planning to escort more people. It's fine if you want to book the whole service, 20 million, said the shorty. Piss off. Go get your customers. Mo Fan had no intention to waste his time with the shorty. Mo Fan had already confirmed the shorty's identity before finding him. He was an advanced hunter, with no bad records. The hunter master vouching for the shorty was clean, too. The quests could only be submitted with signatures. It was unlikely that someone would try to scam someone with all the intermediate and advanced hunters around, unless they were trying to destroy their income. Mo Fan was well aware of this. On top of that, the 10 million would be paid to the Hunter Union first, and would only be handed to the hunters after the quest was completed. There was no such thing as reviews for the hunters, as people need merely look at their completion rate. Chapter 551 Dead and Alive. The two proceeded to find a place to rest for the night. The number of tourists had declined significantly due to the chaos stirred up by the undead. Even the luxurious hotels were incredibly cheap. They would depart the next day. Mo Fan was not in a rush to go to bed. He asked Lu Ru to tag along as he headed to the outer walls. The kingdom of undead was infamous across the world, yet Mo Fan had never seen it before. He was trying to prepare himself mentally for tomorrow. The outer walls were incredibly tall, surrounding the city like steel barrels. Mo Fan used his identity of a hunter to go to the top of the walls. When he reached the top, he was astonished to discover that the number of guards was 10 times higher than the number he saw in the morning. A cold breeze swept past from the distance, bringing the rotten scent of graveyard soil. The guards referred to it as the smell of death. The tall walls extending into the horizon stood still on the land, like they had intercepted the pitch-black land right in the center. However, if one were observing from high up in the sky, they would discover that countless people were moving inside the walls, and similarly, there were countless figures roaming aimlessly outside the walls, too. The clouds were like black silk, densely crowded together. As darkness loomed over the land nurtured by the dew of death, many unknown creatures started to climb out from graves hidden under the ground for decades, and observe their surroundings with green, glowing eyes. A few inhalations later, they had captured the scent of something alive from upwind, a huge bunch of them. Suddenly, the roaming undead sprang toward the ancient capital, as if they were possessed by demons. Their black figures looked like a crowd of refugees lunging at food. However, when they gathered together and slammed into the walls like a rolling tide, their savage faces and hungry eyes made the scalps of the magicians on top of the walls turn numb. The cries of the undead rose. Despite the walls in between, the people at the center of the city were still able to hear the unique wailing cries of the dead clearly. The undead grouped up at the walls, trying to break through the defensive barrier that was stopping them from feeding themselves with their claws and teeth. Some even tried to ram the walls with brute force, and ended up smashing themselves into pieces, with blood splattering everywhere. "I can feel my legs shivering," said Lu Ru nervously, standing at the edge of the walls. Mo Fan cast a side glance at Lu Ru and teased her, "Strictly speaking, you're an undead too." Lu Ru puffed her cheeks unhappily, as if she were implying, "Even if I'm an undead, I'm still a pretty undead." "Why are there so many of them?" Lu Ru glanced into the distance. The walls extended into the distance like mountains, and similarly, she could see packs of undead along the walls. The undead had stacked up into human pyramids at certain spots, where they were stepping on one another, trying to climb over the walls. The guards had no intention of letting them pass. Soon, the groups of magicians began to launch their fire, ice, lightning, and wind spells in all sorts of colors at the undead. Chunks of flesh and blood scattered in the air, a spectacular, terrifying sight. "Those who have no business here, please leave," a loud voice which came out of nowhere demanded. Mo Fan and Lu Ru no longer had the chance to watch the battle. They were chased away, but right before they went down the walls, Mo Fan saw a giant shadow appearing in the horizon. The shadow was surrounded by lots of moving figures, spreading out like a wave. Even though he was unable to see clearly, he could easily tell how dense the undead was. The shadow uttered a roar into the sky, penetrating the sky like rolling thunder, and leaving the walls trembling. If the ancient capital was a city, the shadow in the distance was a conqueror, commanding his army to launch a full assault at the city. The sight stayed with Mo Fan for the rest of the night. Everyone thought wars were far away from them. Little did they know, this ancient capital that had remained standing for centuries had never stopped fighting wars. A war between the dead and the living. Mo Fan was unable to calm his astonishment for a long time. The night was short to those who had fallen asleep early. The night was endless for those still awake, as the battle outside the walls was still ongoing. Mo Fan had trouble falling asleep, but he somehow made it to daytime. The quaking from the distance had disappeared. Mo Fan opened the window. His gaze skipped the densely packed streets and alleys that were interconnected like a giant network and glanced at the long walls looming up in the fog. It felt like some parts had a gap between them, yet it was no different than last night. Mo Fan was unable to see anything 10 kilometers away clearly. He only knew that the battle had ended. Didn't have a good sleep? Lu Ru asked Mo Fan from the balcony beside. I don't think anyone can sleep well, apart from those who have stayed here for some time. I shouldn't have gone to the walls last night. I kept having a nightmare that the undead had broken through the outer walls, said Mo Fan. It's fine, we're still inside them. Even if the outer walls collapsed, aren't the inner walls still a line of defense? Said Lu Ru. Young girl, enough with the nonsense. The outer walls are guarded by thousands of earth magicians. How could they be broken through so easily? Once it collapsed, how many people are going to die? You can eat any food as you wish, but you shouldn't say something like that, said an old woman, who turned out to be the resident below them trimming the plants. The place was fairly interesting. The lower levels consisted of service apartments, while the upper levels functioned like a hotel. Sorry, said Lu Ru, sticking her tongue out. The young ones are so hopeless. They've all forfeited the spirit of protecting the traditions of the ancestors. All they know is staying inside the city and letting other people die for their sake, mumbled the old woman. Mo Fan and Lu Ru did not bother listening. They prepared themselves and headed for the outer walls to meet the shorty. As they arrived at the south gate, Mo Fan was unable to find the shorty among the crowd, until he finally saw the top of his head jumping around after calling out for him. He glanced in the direction of the shorty and saw a few people were gathered around him. The other people looked ordinary, apart from a woman wearing a black veil that captured his attention. Everyone would simply wear a mask nowadays, yet the girl was wearing a veil. Her appearance resembled a character from the ancient TV drama. Mo Fan could not tell if she was just trying to hide her face, or she was simply not a fan of the rotten smell coming from outside the walls. Chapter 552 Black Silk Lady. Apart from the graceful girl wearing a black silk veil, there was a pair of brothers following behind her. Instead of saying they were her friends, they looked more like servants. Including Shorty and a muscular guy who was his friend, the group had 7 people in total, 5 men, 2 women. The morning breeze swept past, bringing a weird smell with it. However, for some reason, when the sunlight shone down upon the place, the smell of the dead faded completely, as if the battle last night had never taken place. The south gate was open in the day. The group only needed to put their details down. As they left the outer walls, they followed the shorty's instructions and headed for Sunny Goat Village. The walls in the south faced the Kindling Mountains. Either flying or driving a vehicle would be deemed disrespectful to the demon beasts of Kindling Mountains, hence those who headed south had no choice but to walk. Mo Fan was extremely curious about the woman with the extraordinary outfit. It was not that there was anything strange about the girl. The truth was, her outfit was too attractive. Despite the cold weather, she was wearing a silk dress embroidered with colorful peacocks, with a soft red cape draped over her shoulder. Each step she took would reveal her S-shaped physique and curves in a rhythmic manner. Mo Fan walked behind her. He found it hard to move his eyes away from the perfectly fitting smooth silk dress, bereft of wrinkles. From her waist to her legs to her jade-white feet, it felt like every single part of her body was filled with charms, hooking his soul away. Mo Fan was fairly experienced, and had seen many gorgeous girls in his life. He even had one keeping him company, but the charm he felt from the woman grew stronger as time passed. Hey, Shorty, where did you find this woman? Mo Fan finally ran out of patience and asked the black-hearted guide. She was willing to pay me the money as soon as I mentioned what our destination was, so I brought her along, said Shorty, secretly peeking at the woman as he spoke. His eyes flickered with great lust as he asked Mo Fan with a grin, one that every man would understand, why, she's hooking your soul away, too. I was just being curious. I feel like she is no ordinary person, said Mo Fan. Of course. Everyone calls me Shorty, yet I've seen more gorgeous women than any handsome man. Good looking, good physique, good skills. I've met all kinds of them, yet this woman. Tisk tisk. I don't care what she looks like, but I'd be willing to not touch any other woman if she let me do it with her once, Shorty said pervertedly. He was not hiding any of his lewd thoughts, as he assumed that Mo Fan was the same kind. Can't your mind be a bit healthier? Mo Fan protested righteously. I'm not healthy, yet who keeps following behind the woman's ass? How long until we arrive at Sunny Goat Village? Asked Mo Fan calmly. The Shorty was speechless by Mo Fan's attempt to act righteously even though he was a pervert, too. He shook his head and said, You shouldn't be asking about how long until we arrive at Sunny Goat Village, but how long until it gets dark. Shorty then pointed his finger into the distance, where the sun was setting on the horizon. Holy shit, the sun is setting already? Cursed Mo Fan. Did time really pass that quick? It's winter now, the night is longer than the day. Are you seriously that dumb? Asked Shorty. You haven't told me the woman's background. Go and ask her yourself if you want to. Mo Fan had no choice but to go back to his position. Lu Ru said to Mo Fan softly, something strange about the woman's presence. Ah, that's right, presence, Mo Fan came to a realization. Mo Fan was not just thinking about something lewd while he was staring at the black silk woman. It was more because he had sensed something out of place. She must be practicing black magic, said Lu Ru. The magic that one cultivated would easily influence their aura and temperament. Lu Ru's speculation was on point, since apart from her seductive temperament, he was also sensing a dark aura from her. Mo Fan also had the shadow element, so he did know a thing or two about black magic. Meanwhile, Lu Ru was a darkness creature herself, so her nose was more sensitive than Mo Fan's. That being said, those who practiced black magic were not necessarily the bad guys. As long as they followed the code of conduct set by the Magic Association, they were free to practice it. She must be very pretty, added Lu Ru. You can tell that too? Asked Mo Fan curiously. Lu Ru was observing the woman with a hint of admiration. Mo Fan quickly took note when he saw her reaction. The sky gradually turned dimmer. In the season where nights were longer than days, the sun, who woke up at 5, was close to climbing into his wife's pitch-black bed. Mo Fan and Lu Ru had both seen the undead, so the silence before the darkness came was extremely intimidating. The land was vast. It was impossible to tell if they were right on top of the undead's territory. It was the very reason why it was necessary to hide a guide, since the weeds on their graves would be 2 meters high next year if they came themselves. Here, eat these. The muscular man took out something like gray garlic cloves from his bag. The man had a bulky figure, yet he looked like a commoner since they could not sense any presence of magic from him, but somehow he was also missing the living presence of a human. Something to eat. You should have said so earlier, I'm starving. Mo Fan quickly went up to receive the food. The gray thing looked like sweet potato, or an enlarged garlic clove. He simply took a bite without overthinking it. The following second, Mo Fan immediately spat it out from his mouth onto the ground. Fuck, is that poop that you just gave me? Cursed Mo Fan. That's ash garlic. It can cover your living breath. With it, the undead won't attack you. We only have a limited supply, and you've just spat one out. If we can't survive the night, it's all on you, explained Shorty immediately. Its taste is so disgusting. I would rather fight the undead than eating something like that, said Mo Fan. The eyes of the woman in black silk flickered, as if she were impressed by Mo Fan's determination. Don't be too confident now. Shush, listen, the Shorty signaled the group to keep quiet. Listen to what? Under the ground, in the soil. Everyone fell quiet. Even though the sky was not fully dark yet, the white sand under their feet began to tremble. It seemed like the vegetables that an old farmer planted were finally sprouting, yet the stern look on Shorty's face had already told everyone what was about to happen.